be seeing you.
I'm sure you will.
Fallout Season 2 decided to drop some primary references to the game, with some Easter eggs appearing in a single episode. In that single episode, we witnessed the creation of Robert House in two completely different states. While Maximus thrashed down one during his fun adventure with Harkness, the other turned out to be an advanced version of the same that the Ghoul came across. These robots are not something you'd easily forget, with their hugely disproportionate bodies, but the one the Ghoul came across might play a significant role in the future. Let's take a look at House's Securitron robots and see if Victor is all that he seems, or if there's more at play here.
Is that you, Victor?
Victor?
Securitron robots. If you think that Robert House was just another mad genius, then the first evidence of his massive intellect is the Securitron robots that have now managed to pop up in the Fallout series too. Mass-produced under the collaboration between H&H Tools Factory and Robco Industries, the PDQ-88B Securitron is supposed to protect the Strip. Basically, they're security robots with a chassis designed to withstand a variety of attacks. Still, on the offensive side, they have weaponry like a 9mm submachine gun, a Glasstinghouse X-25 Gatling laser, and M235 missile launchers mounted on their shoulders. Yep, it's the best Christmas present you can imagine. By the way, these are severely top-heavy, with a broad design featuring giant arms propped up on a single wheel, yet they can move around as quickly as you can imagine. The very first encounters fans had with these security bots were in Fallout New Vegas, where they could be seen patrolling Sin City and other areas of the Mojave Desert, working as what could be called the private army of Robert House. House had them all networked together so that they could produce continuous updates to him and about the telemetry, and if House had an enemy he wanted to deal with, he could do it remotely. Upon your first interaction, you would realize that House wanted to make them as human as possible, with the voice module synthesizing human speech and the CRT screen trying to display an expression. But then the screen would primarily be used to display static images and advertisements, often also using the built-in printer to print leaflets and obituaries on the fly. House did provide these bots with a solid auto-repair driver, which gave them excellent resilience. They were all provided with the Mark I OS before the Great War, which handled most of the control. But House was really looking forward to the Mark II OS using the Platinum chip, which could enhance these robots sufficiently, making them fully functional and giving them about 235% more combat efficiency. You know the designers were having absolute fun designing these robots for the Fallout games, and Sean Stewart, one of the designers behind this robot, said it himself. Working on the Securitron was a grand adventure. He was one of the main characters and part of the main narrative of the game. The player spent quite a bit of time hanging out around the Securitron. The Securitron creature had just over 80 animations and 5 weapon types. It was fun trying to figure out where he was hiding all 5 weapon types, and how to get him to equip and reload them. I had a blast working with the character artist who molded him. We worked out how to switch screens, switch weapons, and blow off his body parts. With the advice of one of the other animators, we got him to vibrate a bit all the time so that it looks like some type of car engine was working somewhere beneath his exterior. I used a lot of little tricks I've collected over the years to make this implausible character look plausible. Good times. Even though House depended on these robots to carry out his will across the Strip, some of them were stored in Lucky 38 as he waited for the Platinum chip. By the time the New Vegas Treaty arrived, the one that gave House sovereignty over the New Vegas Strip, these Securitrons had become the stewards of the Strip, acting like the police next to the NCR MPs. Now, even though these robots felt like one of the most incredible creations of Robert House, they did have a few flaws. The very first being the fact that they weren't entirely invulnerable. Benny, who was supposed to be House's right-hand man, managed to reprogram one of the Securitrons after disabling it with an EMP and creating Yes Man. This allowed Benny to access some of House's encrypted data, enabling him to gather information on the Platinum chip. House had his own method for frying the Securitron if it went astray in any way, and pulling off a move like Benny without House frying the robot didn't seem possible. Big MT recognized the truly amazing aspect of these robots and acquired a large number of Securitrons to reverse engineer them and create something superior to the existing model. But that plan never came to fruition, and the only thing that came out of it was Muggy, a miniature robot particularly known for its obsession with cookware. Meanwhile, most of the other security robots that Big MT's Dr. O worked on ended up going berserk or being completely damaged and roaming around the wasteland. Now, another significant detail about these robots was that House had designed some of them to serve him personally. They were known as his girls and could be found in the Lucky 38 penthouse. The first in this series was Jane, and another named Marilyn was planned with a distinct appearance separate from the other Securitron. Fun fact, both of them were named after famous Hollywood stars, Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell, who starred together in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Maybe that was House's favorite film. Or, as Veronica Santangelo had mentioned, they were simply his sex robots.
Didn't you have something to do with all that?
Victor. Enter Victor, another of House's security robots designed for a specific purpose, carrying out his operations beyond the city limits. The Securitrons could mainly operate within the city limits. It was Victor who was installed with a specific, unique personality that allowed him to carry out some pre-programmed orders outside of that range semi-independently. According to the robot itself, it has been in Goodsprings since 2266, and when asked about anything else, it clarifies that it doesn't recall anything from before that time. So one can clearly imagine that Victor was one of the first robots sent into the wasteland in search of any form of civilization in the post-apocalyptic world. What really set Victor apart from the other security robots? Well, the very first noticeable thing about this robot was its cowboy personality, along with a warm demeanor that somehow went entirely against the idea of it being deployed by a mad genius. Don't take my word for it, but Victor comes up quite a few times in Fallout New Vegas. And even though it is an interesting chance encounter with a robot helping the player out, it adds to the mystery of the post-apocalyptic world and the game's off-putting tone. He lives in a shack at Goodsprings, and it's only later discovered that this robot had a larger purpose that was never really made clear during early interactions with him. It seems that the robot was tasked with helping House find the lost platinum chip, the one obsession that could upgrade all his Securitrons and give him further control over the post-apocalyptic world. But what makes this robot really unique, apart from the cowboy charm, is that it can jump from robot to robot if any one of them is destroyed. Yeah, that's a really cool trick, House. These behaviors might remind people of the AI robots that don't really need a body to operate, but in the post-apocalyptic world, it would be challenging to have such a consciousness. In fact, there's a chance that House has Victor's entire personality and behavior down to a T on some computers kept deep in the hidden depths of the casino where he himself lies. But nothing like that has ever been indicated in the games, except for the fact that even though Victor did operate remotely, out of House's range, it did manage to send packets of data back to House. And however much House might be into these robots, there's no way he would be handing the remote concept of free will to them through AI. Victor's appearance in Fallout Season 2. During the Ghoul's search for backup as he planned to save Lucy, he came across an abandoned NCR site that pretty much clarified that there wasn't much left of the new California Republic to seek out. Now, that's when the Ghoul came across Victor, suddenly woken by a familiar face, since it is suggested that Cooper Howard and the robot had a past. You know something was wrong with the robot when it didn't seem to recognize its own identity and had spent the last 10 years thinking it was a soda machine instead. In fact, it was confused about its location, hovering over the ruins of the NCR site. But this interaction turned out to be much more critical than we might have imagined, because it was here that we got some intel about House and his fate in the past few episodes. Who can forget Hank sending House a message as House continued working on the chips he had been developing since pre-war times? But there was no indication about House's presence in the post-war time, since that would explain who's in control now. The Ghoul read our minds and asked the Securitron about his creator. Even though the Securitron responded that Robert House was dead, Victor noted that one of House's primary goals was to live forever. But if you revisit the episode, it's pretty clear that Victor doesn't really use the word died or dead. Instead, he just says that House is gone. And if you know House like the Ghoul does, or the way that others who have been around him do, House was someone who always planned ahead. And there was no way he hadn't been prepared for the war. The scene with the two characters does seem awkward, as they seem to share knowledge they don't want to discuss. Now, even though the robot has been operating remotely and appeared to be glitchy with no clarity about its own identity, it won't be surprising if this was the result of some sneaky programming that House had done earlier. Those who have played the game know that every encounter with this robot has an ulterior motive, completely programmed by House himself. One would imagine that the cowboy-themed robot would serve its purpose and help out around Goodsprings, but that isn't the case at all. And the townsfolk have mentioned that it hardly contributes to the town. So the fact that it doesn't get involved in anything to do with the town, and instead works only towards goals intended to serve its larger goal, is clear evidence that this robot is working for the villain. Though it isn't a hostile figure, the mere presence of this robot is clearly an extension of the will of its creator, Robert House. Marvelous verdict. We might be getting a chance to see the chapter of the Ghoul's life that Victor indicates in the upcoming episodes, but the one thing that's becoming increasingly clear about the series is that something bigger is cooking, and either Norm or someone else will figure out that House is still active and pulling the strings. Though that would also help the Ghoul with his question about his wife and daughter, it might not be the best answer we're looking for. The Amazon show might be cooking its own lore, but the game does lay out the basic principles, and that's where the show won't stray far from. So let's look out for Victor.